This talk is based on my delivery of Professor Sarinder Man Singh oration on 26th April 2018 at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. I am truly privileged today to deliver third Professor Sarinder Man Singh oration. Professor Man Singh was a legendary urologist born in Muri in 1928, that is now in Pakistan, studied at the Doon School, Dehradun, had his medical school partly at the King Edward Memorial Medical College at Lahore, and subsequently after partition moved over to Stanley Medical College, Chennai, the then Madras. He passed out his graduation with 4 gold medals and 7 prizes, truly with flying colors. Thereafter, to pursue his higher studies in surgical sciences, he went to England and qualified Fellowship of the Royal College of England and returned to India to take up the first position as registrar and honorary at the then Irvine Hospital before he moved as assistant professor in urology at All India Institute of Medical Sciences to start one of the pioneer urology departments of the country. He was awarded with the Rockefeller Foundation Fellowship to further his training in urology at the Johns Hopkins and Newcastle upon Tyne. Professor Man Singh was historically the inspector to inspect the first urology program in the country at the Madras Medical College under the aegis of Madras Medical University. The subject of my talk today is relevant because it's more of my own story of pivoting during my career, which incidentally started while I was working in All India Institute of Medical Sciences in 1977 in the Department of Urology as a lecturer, and it enjoys significance because in my very first pivoting decision, Professor Man Singh played a decisive role. It was in the middle of 1978, on one Saturday morning after the rounds, I was surprised by receiving a letter from Union Public Service Commission inviting me to be a contact candidate for a position of urology as associate professor at the Zipmer Pondicherry. Historically, this was one institute which had urology department in its very blueprint, but unfortunately they were not able to get anybody for the past 12 years. My name was recommended by one of the senior professors, Professor R.P. Srivastava, who happened to know me professionally. I was really surprised. It was a pleasant surprise, but I was not able to decide because it was very hard to leave a very coveted faculty position in urology in 70s at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. I went to see Professor Man Singh after the rounds. He was not very happy at my prospects of leaving the department, but advised me rightly by telling that if at all you have to make a department, you are at the right age when you can make a department of your dreams. And that came true. My second pivot was 9 years after the first one, when I moved out from Zipmer Pondicherry after having established the very first MCH program in urology in Government of India institutions initiating and founding Indian Journal of Urology, and developing authoritative experience in the field of stricture urethra. I had an opportunity to move to make a department at the newly formed institute, Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute in Lucknow. I joined the institute right at its inception. Urology was the first specialty, one of the first specialties to start. We were the first to operate in the new building. We had the first MCH program there and the first kidney transplant program in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Then I continued in Lucknow till I moved over to United States, and it was a long spell of 15 years at Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute. I moved over in between for two smaller pivots which were of great significance. In 1996, I decided to take a sabbatical to do basic research work on molecular pathology of the prostate cancer at the University of Florida. And in 2000, I was invited by Apollo Hospital Group to establish country's first virtual medical university at Hyderabad. It was a great opportunity to work with NIT and learn the lessons on hospital information system, medical content generation, graphics, and computers, including telemedicine. We were able to, with the support of Apollo and NIT, we were able to establish the country's first virtual medical university named as MedVarsity. My major pivot came in 2006 when I decided to move at the request of my friend Dr. Mani Menon, who had by then pioneered robotic radical prostatectomy known as Vattikuti Institute Prostatectomy at Detroit. 2006, I moved over to Detroit to manage his country's largest database on cancer prostate, radical prostatectomy. Thereafter, while working on database, I found myself deficient in the knowledge of biostatistics and decided to take a graduate course in biostatistics run by the Harvard University Extension School. Thereafter, within 3 years, I felt my work was getting routine, and I decided to take MBA program at the famous Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. This was a totally different area than the medicine. It was a major pivot for me, but nonetheless, my experience at the University of Michigan was eye-opening and one of the best experiences of my life. Thereafter, things did not stop for me. When I was looking at economic upheavals in the market, I decided to take up a course on economics at the Stanford University online, run by famous Professor Taylor. Now this goes on and all. The major part of my pivoting career, to summarize, is they were not hastily done gypsy heritage movements. They were well thought of career moves, which was, and I left all the positions when I was at the top of the game. Nobody expected that I would leave All India Institute. Nobody expected that I would leave Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute for King George's Medical College, but there was some inner promptations I had which made me to do so. If you look at my story, my core competence was in the field of urology and kidney transplantation, which moved over when I took over as the director and vice chancellor's positions at Lucknow into medical administration. It was information technology, it was basic sciences during my sabbatical, and also at that point in time as a medical educationist. If I look back in my current job position, it is a conglomerate of the job specifications I have. I am deeply involved in the innovation of new surgical procedures. At the foundation end, I am deeply involved with the strategy, business planning, and the handling of large databases and dissemination of new robotic surgical techniques across the globe. Well, when we are talking of reinvention or transition of surgical careers, there are three states you pass through. You have a present stage, you have a transition stage, and you have a future state. Transition state, according to me, is the most difficult one. When one loses its identity, neither you are here nor you are there. You seem to be missing your forte, which you worked for all the times, and you have no standing in the new field. But sincerity of purpose makes transitions to pass through very smoothly. The pivot could be of two kinds. One is a risk-averse pivot, and I could be one of the examples for that. In that, what you see is perfect example of the basketball player who, when he's surrounded and has no space to hit the goal, he pivots to 180 degree on one foot, but one foot is always on the ground. And that is the kind of secure pivot I've had. I never burnt my boats in the place I was working, but still I managed to move. And that is known as a risk-averse pivot. In contrast to risk-taking pivot, and risk takers are moved to disciplines which have practically no link with the previous disciplines. But it is again, they are able to manage the transition phase efficiently. There are some very famous examples from Indians who have pivoted, which includes Mahmood, Zubin Smriti Irani, even our own Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Akshay Kumar, and Dhirubhai Ambani. All of them pivoted from their positions and risen from the ranks to the top of the different sphere. Now, when we talk of career transition or reinventing yourself, it is all about your identity. And identity is something which you have to manage proactively. Identity changes, your networks change, your peers change, and people would still identify you with your old role. For us who work with big institutions which are very famous and branded, there is always a conflict in the identity. So our identities are submerged in the identities of the individuals. And until we nurse our own identities, at the end of our career at that institution, we end up with the identity of the institution. So, most of us, while we are in service, are spoken hub when we imbibe knowledge, receive knowledge, and give knowledge or practice knowledge. But what we should be is act as a bridge also, which starts working for your next likely move or the career. Question is, why can't life be allowed to go as at its own pace? Why one should pivot? I had my own reasons for pivoting because I always found that too much of focus for too long a time gives you a fatigue. And I didn't want to be victim of that fatigue, and that's why I wanted a different flavor at a particular time. Many times you are in comfort zone. All the times I would say you are in comfort zone, and we always think that holding on our current positions makes us strong, but sometimes it is the other way. Losing them makes you strong, because that has to have a vision of what you are ending up with. And it's very important, and one point I would mark here, because most of us in the audience are surgeons, it is a very tough decision to leave active surgery and the patient care. But you have to play different roles, and at an appropriate time you have to move, leaving the surgical excitement, which we have got to do. If I look at the life, we are, as human beings, are bundles of attributes, and our bundle laying begins with the core bundle of our competency, whatever is your area. In my case, it is urology and transplantation. I imbibe knowledge, and the biggest part in my bundle would be the core of my domain knowledge. But as you move from different roles you play, as student you imbibe knowledge, as teacher you add few more bundles, but the role you play as a teacher is totally different than what you played as a student. Similarly, you become a team leader or head of the department or chairman of the department. You cease to be a faculty member, though you may be actively involved in practice of urology, but then you have other people to look after too. So you have a totally different set of bundles. Similarly, when you move over to the institutional role or leadership role, where you have to manage 40 or 50 departments, you cease to be a department of one specialty. And same thing about national role, and then international or global role, and finally your bundle is complete, and then you have different fibers of different color with different skill sets, which would make you a versatile member of the society. But mind you, everybody in your core and otherwise would remember with the identity you have in that particular discipline. Having said that, how do you pivot? Well, I don't think there is a linear way to pivot, but only one thing I would like to say, which is so relevant in all different roles you play, and that is Shoshin, is a Jain term. You have to behave like a child. You have to erase the slate of the past, and you have to make a fresh beginning. You can't be delving into the past all the times and remembering the successes or good experiences you have had. You have to think afresh. One major thing is, in the beginner's mind, you have several possibilities like a child, but the expert has only one. And that's what makes it different. This is what Suzuki said. How difficult it is to pivot. And the best example is a domino effect. What I found in my own experience, it was very hard to take a decision of transition. But once you have taken a decision, then it is a cascading event. Like a domino, which starts with a very minor nudge to push the first domino.
Is a chain of dominoes. Each one is 1.5 times larger than the previous one. And the smallest domino is about 5 millimeters high and 1 millimeter thick. And I will carefully place it. And there are 13 dominoes. And the largest domino, it weighs about 100 pounds and is more than a meter tall. Ready? Boom.
And like that, it has been calculated that 38th domino would have the power to knock off a block as high as Empire State Building. There is another phenomenon in our formal education. We are in a do, be and have paradigm, which is totally reversed in case of reinventing education. Here, it is not linear education. We have to be, because we really do not know. It's not inclusive kind of thing. First, you have to feel what you have, what you want to be. You have to be that. You have to behave as that. And then we start doing, and then we have, which is totally reverse. It is something which is an evolutionary process which you would not know. It is a kind of phenomenon where the only knowledge is not enough. You have to have a knowledge which you can use for doing something. Herminia Ibarra, an expert in this field from Harvard, had said that you have to act as a leader to be a leader and think like a leader. Getting to clarity is an organic, evolutionary and dynamic process. And I remember exactly, this is what when we went to business school, they did not tell us anything what is going to happen in the next course. We had to really learn as we moved ahead. And the reason was, it is not possible to let you know what it is. The best example is at the bottom of the staircase, you cannot know what is at the top until you climb the top. What is essential for pivoting? You need authenticity as a leader. You need insight and outside. You need skill sets, which I already talked about, different skill sets, not the skill sets which we used to have a previous role play. You need a different networking. You have to get out of the comfort zone of your own network and get into a new network. You have to have a decision-making capability, and you have to do the training to that. In conclusion, I would like to say, though it was not a planned affair, for in my case, I really enjoyed moving at the right time from place to place to gain different experiences, learn new things, create new networks. And yet I have not lost my identity as a urologist or my core competence. I would like to pay tribute to Professor Man Singh, who gave me the first nudge to pivot in my career. And so many people I had an opportunity to touch lives. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you.